few weeks ago, when many of us were protesting the brutal bombing F-16s, Israeli F-16s in Gaza, many of us were saying, well, hey, let's look at where those are made. Let's look at who makes them. And of course, it's Lockheed Martin. But in regard to Israel, Lockheed Martin is not simply an arms supplier. It isn't simply making the F-16s here, sending them over there, and all they wash your hands. No. Lockheed Martin is an arms partner with Israel. And as hard as that for some people to face, we need to face that. Lockheed Martin is an arms partner. That is 16 different plants in Israel. The patents for those F-16s sold to Israel for production there in Israel. Not an arms supplier, which it is, of course, the #1 arms trader in the world, but an arms partner. The next example I'd like to talk about is the political influence, which I believe that in sum, the political influence of Lockheed Martin is its very existence. Its very existence. Its very sheer capital worth. This past quarter, Lockheed Martin, in this economic climate, in this economic meltdown, reported a 41% increase in net worth. In this last quarter. But I'd like to say a little something about a guy named Bruce Jackson. And I don't want to pick on Bruce Jackson, even though he called me an idiot. But Bruce Jackson is, or had been until he retired just a few months back, one of the chief, Bruce Jackson is Lockheed Martin's vice president for Washington Concerns. And what that means is he's the head of all lobbying that Lockheed Martin does. But that is not restrained simply to buy our weapon or promote our weapon in your district or that. No, Bruce Jackson has much bigger areas of view. When the Cold War ended and the so-called Iron Curtain collapsed, and the United States increasingly began to look at the possibilities for enhancing or expanding NATO, a little lobbying group, which was actually a rather large lobbying group, was developed in Washington called the Committee to Expand NATO. You'll never think who headed that committee. Bruce Jackson. And of course, then Poland buys 5 F-16s. Czechoslovakia recently admitted to NATO, buys a fleet of F-22s, etc., etc. More recently, Bruce Jackson was the person behind the chief lobbying for the Iraq War in 2002. That he was the one who orchestrated those incredible hearings before Congress. He was the one who briefed, supposedly, Colin Powell. But his sort of bearing got a little off because he chose to appoint his committee Operation Iraqi Liberation. Operation Iraqi Immigration. Unfortunately, Bruce didn't have much of a sense of acronym because when that came out, it was revealed it's oil. Operation Oil. Anyway, so those are just a couple examples of why we resist at Lockheed Martin. It is not simply another weapons producer. Indeed, its CEO, who's the 5th highest paid CEO in the country, Robert Stevens, 15th highest paid CEO in the country, Robert Stevens, he has said, and a very interesting article, I don't always agree with Tim Weiner, certainly not his book on the CIA and what have you, but he has written some amazing columns in the New York Times about Lockheed Martin specifically, and about how it's not simply a weapons producer. It is seeking to be the corporation who shapes, who models, who makes society. And I'm reminded many years ago, hearing Reginald Jones, who Ed will remember. He was the longtime president of General Electric, and he was speaking actually down at the Wharton School, and we had a little protest going on there, and he made an incredible statement for me as a Catholic, and for some of you. He said, you know, General Electric is not just a company. We're not just a corporation. In fact, we touch everyone to such a degree in their everyday life that we are, well, like the kingdom of God. Lockheed Martin touches very few, but it has power over us all. Thank you.
We have some time for questions, discussions. Ed, you have had pride of place and recognition. Do you have any comments to begin with?